All right, everybody. Good evening, WNBA and women's basketball fans, and welcome in to the WNBA 365 Network, your comprehensive home for all things WNBA and women's basketball as we approach the 2017 WNBA All-Star break as we get ready for the All-Star Week festivities happening on Friday, Saturday, with the game, of course, happening on Saturday in Seattle. But welcome in, though, folks, to WNBA 365 for this Wednesday night, July the 19th, 2017. Cal McClure joining you, folks, for the meantime this evening here from the Calamac Sports Studios in San Diego. Could be joined sometime during the program by any one of our trusty correspondents. More than likely, perhaps Crystal Thomas will join us here this evening, folks. We'll have more about our programming lineup and schedule for you folks, about the All-Star Weekend festivities on Friday and Saturday as well. We will probably have some programming on Saturday. We're working on a couple of new show ideas, too, for the future once the off-season hits. So we may have some more programming content, but more exciting things to somewhat continue to improve the brand here over at WNBA 365. We may actually start going back to having more than one show every night. We may have some stuff that I'm going to have to work out and think about and storyboard during the latter part of the week and everything else included. But nonetheless, folks, 4 games on the schedule and 2 more to get to for tomorrow before we do, in fact, get to the 2017 WNBA All-Star Game and the All-Star break. And as a reminder, folks, the All-Star Game will take place this upcoming Saturday in a matter of roughly 48 to 72 hours from the Key Arena in Seattle, Washington on July 22nd, tip-off at 12:30 Pacific time on ABC. Your local ABC affiliates will have the game for you folks on Saturday. Of course, folks, get involved with the program through any of the social media outlets, either through Facebook, Twitter, or the live chat box over at facebook.com/WNBA365. Find us over on Twitter at WNBA365, at Calamac3, or at Pup1010 with the hashtag WNBA365. Or you can, of course, chime in and send in your questions, comments, or concerns into the live chat box. And we'll get to those comments when we have a break in the action. Again, folks, 4 games, all 4 games were day games today. Teams perhaps playing their required camp day game either today or tomorrow, of course, with the All-Star break coming up. So presumably some teams getting a head start on their All-Star break vacations and rest times here. First game for the day between the Sun and Liberty. New York wins 96-80 from the Madison Square Garden this evening. Over there in New York, Jonquil Jones, 14 points, and Lynetta Kaiser with 11 points in the loss for Connecticut. Tina Charles, 28 points for the Liberty in the victory, and Shavante Zealous with 16 points. You know, folks, as much as the Sun have been a very intriguing, a very, very feel-good story so far of how they've really have improved in such a very short span of time, obviously, they have taken their licks a little bit, though, against some of the upper echelon or more quote-unquote established teams, either Los Angeles earlier this month. New York, of course, has been one of the teams that's somewhat had itself a minor resurgency is what I'm getting at. But still, though, Connecticut's able to hang in, you know, with these really top and tough teams, along with the Lions of Minnesota. They've hung in with the Lynx so far this season. They hung in with the Liberty. They hung in with the Sparks this season. But again, somewhat, though, against these, you know, veteran-clad, veteran-heavy teams, they still have shown, you know, some very small signs of their youth and their roster age so far. But still, though, I mean, no mean to discredit, you know, nothing bad about Connecticut. Again, this has been a amazing turnaround season for the Sun. Amber Cox has done a phenomenal job up there on the business side, and of course, Kurt Miller. We have some news about Kurt in the All-Star game to tell you folks about momentarily. But this run, though, by the Sun has been absolutely incredible to see. Again, a team that we have seen the past couple years struggle from seasons either with young talent, injury problems, coaching changes, what have you, and they have really got themselves in a very good place, out of the basement of the Eastern Conference in the league, and now to a team that probably I think is maybe ahead of schedule. I know that Eric Nemchok, our great former analyst, had said that many times during the offseason during last year, that that it was more so Seattle in his mind. But I think that it's also Seattle, but also Connecticut was also ahead of schedule with the rebuild, or at least now that they're showing that, at least now that Connecticut is showing that they are ahead of schedule, and they've been a very, very amazing story so far, and they have done a great job. And I think that as well proved a lot of people wrong so far with how well they have performed so far this season. In regards to the New York Liberty, again, obviously they have been somewhat in a bit of a minor scuffle, and they have been scuffling as of late, but able to get a pretty big win to keep themselves somewhat in the middle tier so far of the playoff race. And again, Tina Charles has 28 points tonight, and Shavonte Zealous chips in 16. So for New York, I think going into the break, pretty big win to somewhat get momentum back on their side again. They've had a pretty rough go so far in the month of July. They've scuffled for the past couple of weeks, either losing games incrementally or blowing leads, or above all getting blown out in a couple of games earlier this month. But so far, but again, for them, pretty big win, keeping momentum on their side and somewhat staying close by and touching distance of both the Sun and Mystics for the top half right now of the Eastern Conference standings right now at this point in time. Moving over again, folks, as a reminder, again, once more, the Liberty defeat the Sun today from Madison Square Garden by the final score today of 96-80. The final score in both those teams will get their all-star breaks started or have gotten themselves their break started here this evening. The next game, folks, the Dream and Mystics, and what a wild, epic, amazing game today from our nation's capital. The Mystics pull it out after being down all game, after erasing over a 20-point deficit. They beat the Dream in OT, 196 in overtime. Brittany Sykes, 27 points for her today, and Tiffany Hayes, 24 points. But Christy Tolliver, probably her hallmark game as a Mystic so far after being signing there this past over the offseason, 29 points. Emma Meesman and Ivory Lotta both combining for 18 points apiece. Folks, for the Dream, I think this is a pretty deflating loss for a team that started strong and is somewhat also, like the Liberty has been, in somewhat of a scuffling month of July, or at least the last couple of weeks. And at least with Brittany Sykes, I know that a lot of us probably had Alicia Gray of the Wings as the frontrunner for MVP, or for Rookie of the Year, I should say. But I think, though, Brittany Sykes is somewhat saying, no, not so fast. I mean, have you not seen what I've done the past couple of weeks in games? Again, 27 points for Brittany Sykes today for the Dream this afternoon, and really has come on, I think, much like we've seen Erica Wheeler come on with the Fever the past couple of games and weeks, is, somewhat stepping up in big situations. And Sykes has done that. She's played great the past couple of games, and obviously someone is saying, hey, I'm a rookie, but I'm here to take charge of my team, help my team out as much as I can. And she did that, did her part, 27 points. And again, Tiffany Hayes, who I think has had also a great season, is also, as I'll say again, but for the most part, is again really not really embracing the underrated tagline, but just has played phenomenal again, getting the nod for the All-Star game as well. As a reserve, and I think this year, she's been very deserving of that All-Star game nod. Tiffany Hayes, again, for Atlanta, playing phenomenal. But again, for the Dream, though, at least mentally, incrementally blowing the 20-plus point lead and falling in overtime, that's probably one that Atlanta really wants back. And obviously, cold shooting spells, perhaps some miscues on defense. Obviously, one of the big threes that Christy Tolliver had made, it looked like it was, a passing clinic by the Mystics, where the Dream were so lost in the shuffle on defense. And, of course, Michael Cooper, being that, that defensive specialist in his time in the NBA, was probably, putting hands on head, how can we fall asleep like that on defense? It was, ping pong passes, touch passes, and then it was a wide open three that gave the Mystics the lead late in the ball game. And that was just something, obviously, that Michael Cooper probably wants back. I think he really wants those back again. And Christy Tolliver, again, folks, probably her hallmark game, as I said at the Open, 29 points this evening for KT. And again, obviously, when you go from playing with one team for such a long time, and then you go somewhere else again. So obviously playing between Carol Ross for 3 seasons in Los Angeles, Penny Toller for 6 games after Ross's firing, Brian Agler for 2 full seasons, and then now moving from those systems in Los Angeles then moving out now to the system over in Washington. Obviously it's been, probably a year, though, that she would probably say by her standards is a year that, has not gone her way. And obviously today's game, though, for her potentially, I think, is a big help in perhaps getting her confidence back up, her finding her shooting touch, perhaps, for all that I know. But a lot of factors obviously going in to when players go from one system to another. Also for the Mystics today, Emma Meesman and Ivory Lotta, 18 combined points. And really, Ivory telling Christy Winter-Scott and Frank Hanrahan on Monumental today, really spoke about the crowd day. Now, again, all 4 games, folks, were camp day games. But I mean, obviously, as a player, though, and you see all those young kids in the building, and obviously, the Mystics have somewhat been in the danger zone, perhaps for attendance this season or the past couple of years. But at least when the camp day's there, I mean, that gives those players an extra boost of momentum, a little bit of a boost of, of adrenaline. And, that's what Ivory really attributed to for the game today. But again, a very epic game. Epic game if you're a Mystics fan, and probably a game that you probably want back if you are a Dream fan. Again, they lose after blowing a 20-plus point lead this evening, 196, a final score in overtime nonetheless here this evening. All right, to the chat box we go real quick. First up is our buddy Todd Mintz, who writes in to say, the Sun, about Connecticut at least, the Sun can score with anyone. Defense still a problem for them, in my opinion. When they get against the bigger, stronger team versus the Libs, they have issues. Been great season for them so far. And Todd, that was somewhat what I kind of pointed out a little bit, was about how they've hung in there, but obviously either roster age or, again, lack of vets that are on this Connecticut team against the Minnesotas of the world and the Phoenixes of the world and the LAs of the world and also the Liberties. But they've hung in there, though. I mean, this is not a Sun team like maybe, let's say, Ann Donovan-led Sun, or maybe the past couple seasons where they've been blown out, in the first half of games or midway through the third quarter. They have done a better job of scoring, passing. Honestly, some notes, some nuts to tighten up, of course, with the screwdriver perhaps. But hey, they still have played a great job. And again, like I said, very incredible story that they've been in there so far this season. Todd, also about the Mystics, he says KT, who has not played well, really woke up today with 29 points on 7 threes. The role players for them play well at home, not so well away. Hawkins Cloud really contribute at home. And Todd, it's also been one problem too, outside of perhaps what we have talked about, though, and this is something that Owen Perkins and I talked about too a couple of weeks ago, was, again, that the Mystics have played great at home. I mean, don't get me wrong, you want to win your home games, but it's a matter, though, of can you win games away from home and also in hostile territory, much like Los Angeles and Phoenix, Minnesota, New York, of course, also being, four of the biggest and baddest places to play. Can the Mystics, though, take, their home energy on the road with them now is the only big is the other way for them to get in to the equation here at this point in time, folks. Waiting on Crystal Thomas, folks, but Crystal is having some technical problems getting into the Hangout. I've been trying to send her links and everything, so Crystal, I know we've had a lot going on here, but we'll see what does happen sometime soon. Also going to Todd once more, staying with the Mystics, he says Washington plays well when the bench contributes. When they do not, it's a struggle for Elander to carry the group. Now Hill is out. Lotta has to step up. Michael Luss says real quick about the Dream, missing a dominant center. And also, Mike, I think it also somewhat, again, probably not a big factor, but somewhat goes back to Angel McCoughtry's absence. I mean, obviously, Angel won't be posting up against BG or Candace Parker or Neko Ogumake in, down low doing the dirty work. But her scoring loss, though, I think still has been a contributing factor to ATL's somewhat rough season. Now, obviously, it was pretty picture perfect to start the season earlier on, looked good through May and June. But lately, though, there's been some, a minor disconnect a little bit. I mean, Sykes has played well. Hayes has been playing great all season. Clarendon's played great, too, in a starting role. But still, the one missing puzzle piece, though, perhaps overshadowed by Angel's for Angel being gone, possibly. Not saying it is, but possibly. But obviously, I would agree, though, they are definitely missing another piece to the puzzle. Todd also says, afraid to say this, but Meesman and Deladon do not seem to play well as a group together. She looks uncomfortable finding her role in offense with Elena in the lineup. Tana, if I can think back pretty well to the time when the Sparks used to roll out Parker, Nneka, and Lav as a starting unit, that was atrocious. I mean, because obviously you're playing 3 bigs out there and playing 2 small guards out there, and the offense just really, I mean, it worked against, obviously it worked against, certain teams, but never really worked well against Phoenix, against Minnesota, for that matter. Didn't work very well against other teams, though, too, that were perhaps what people would say were cakewalks or easy victories. So at least in the first year of this, Todd, the experiment has not succeeded yet. Can it be fixed? More time in the gym. Obviously, this year with Miesman being gone with the Belgian national team earlier this season also didn't help factors as well for that. But obviously that can be polished up as we do now, folks. Welcome in our good buddy Crystal Thomas joining us up from Los Angeles. Crystal, I know you've been stuck in a lot of places and things going on personally, but great to see you. Great to hear from you. How's it going tonight? Good to see you.
Hello. I was having technical issues, but I am here.
So again, folks, for those of you that are going to Seattle, myself not included, but if you are going to the game, again, Crystal will be there on behalf of the network. Again, she'll be in charge of a lot of things that we'll bring up later on in the program. But Crystal, I guess we can kind of get the Cliff Notes version, I guess, from you, obviously, 4 early games today on the schedule. Crystal, I guess, if you have any thoughts you want to pass along about the first game again, the Liberty over the Sun, 96-80 today. I mean, I said in the open again, Crystal, in the opening monologue that the Sun, this has not been a, typical Sun team that we've seen in the past couple of years. Again, they have really, I think, have been, a very good, incredible, feel-good story again. Just seeing all these young players finally gel as a unit's been great to see. But obviously, they've hung in there, but obviously haven't been able to get big wins other than the win in Minnesota. But still, though, struggling a bit against teams like Los Angeles and also against New York. Crystal, what really, though, have you seen differently from the Sun, at least, in your mind so far this season? Again, I think it's been a very great, very, very fantastic story seeing this team getting back on track.
I think the Sun are pretty much a team that nobody expected them to be as good this fast, especially because they're young. And I know last year they showed some promise with them being as good as they are. But I don't think anybody expected them to be where they are this quick. I mean, they're in 3rd place, and I don't think any teams. Well, I don't think anyone had them being 3rd in the East. I mean, I think everybody was pretty much on Washington and Connecticut to be the. I'm sorry, not Connecticut, Washington and New York to be the top 2 teams coming out of the East. But Connecticut is a young team that has showed that that they can compete with anybody. I think I give them a few more years to to be able to compete with LA a little bit better than they're doing right now. Well, not just LA, but the top teams anyway. But
I mean, that's what I was saying. At least that so far this season they haven't really. I mean, they obviously beating Minnesota, of course, is going to be a big win for that team and that young core of talent. But obviously, hanging in there with the LAs of the world and the New Yorks of the world, of course, always helps. Crystal, Atlanta, I think today probably wants a mulligan or a redo, perhaps, of the game today. Again, obviously they lose in pretty rough fashion in OT, 196. Again, Chrissy Tolliver, 29 points, 7 made threes. And the Mystics overcome a uphill 20-plus point deficit to win this ball game after giving up 34 points in the second quarter of play. Crystal, for a team like Atlanta, who has somewhat been like New York, they've kind of scuffled the past couple of games, days, weeks, and weeks for that matter. How crushing do you believe? Obviously, I know that there's still a whole another half of a season to go, but Crystal, in a season like the WNBA, so compacted into 4 months of the year, how deflating can this loss be for a team when you give up, a big lead and lose like this in this kind of fashion, though? What do you think?
Oh, man, that's really deflating. Can you guys still hear me?
You're good.
It's really deflating, especially I know conferences don't matter that much anymore, especially, with the top 8 teams going to the playoffs. But especially when you have a team that is in your conference, a team that playing in the playoffs, depending on seeding. I mean, especially being up by 21, you want that one back. I mean, they pretty much gave that game to Washington in the second half. All thanks to Chrissy Tolliver, who's probably had her best game of the season so far, arguably. But if you're Atlanta, you can't be up by that much and kind of get complacent and let the game go. They say that they think they're a championship team, but championship teams don't do that.
Crystal, obviously, Christy Tolliver, like I said, I mean, she's had a bit of a rough transition period. Again, like I said, I mean, you're going from, your whole time playing for 1 to 3 coaches. So obviously, you're talking in Ross, you're talking in Toller for 6 games at the end of the 2015 season. You're factoring in Brian Agler for 2 seasons in those systems. Then, of course, you go from one team to another, learning a whole new system. But Crystal, obviously, probably, I mean, I know, of course, KT's still your favorite player regardless of what uniform she's wearing. But, Crystal, would you probably agree, though, this is probably a season that perhaps Christy Tolliver probably would say by her standards is probably one of her worst seasons so far in her career?
Definitely. I don't know. I don't know what it is with that team. I mean, as of right now, she just doesn't mesh well with them. I'm not going to say who's to say what's going to happen next year. I mean, maybe they'll figure it out. But, I mean, she just doesn't really play well there. I don't know if it's just for now. I don't know if it's the style they play. I don't know if it's ever going to change. But statistically, this is definitely probably the worst years that I've ever seen her play basketball. I mean, averaging 10 points a game. I know today she scored 29. It took her about 23 shots to get there. But, I mean, as far as she's been playing this season, I mean, she's been very mediocre this season. I actually expected her to be an all-star this season, but she definitely hasn't played like one at all.
Crystal, move now to a full game recap now from the 3rd game of the camp day schedule today. The Wings and Lynx hooked up from the Xcel Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. The Lynx run away with this one over the Wings 174. Led this morning and afternoon by Sylvia Fowles for the Lynx, 24 points. Maya Moore, one of her better shooting nights, 23 points. Skylar Diggins Smith, 23 points for Dallas. And Gloria Johnson chipped in 16 in the losing effort for the Wings. Crystal, the Wings, again, they've played, I want to say they played the most games so far amongst any team in the league so far. And obviously, there's still something just not really clicking yet still with this Dallas team. So, I mean, obviously, you're going and playing, a buzzsaw in Minnesota, and they really never got themselves in the ball game. They played good in a stretch, but really, though, this was all Minnesota this afternoon. Again, Sylvia Fowles just was able to, eat up everything inside, 24 points. Maya Moore was on fire tonight, 23 points. Crystal, final takeaway from the Lynx winning at home this afternoon over Dallas.
I mean, I'm not surprised. The Lynx are a really good team. They're number 1 for a reason. They have 3 All-Stars for a reason. They're a team that a lot of teams are afraid to play. A lot of teams know that when they play Minnesota, they can't just come out there and play soft basketball. Like, they got to give Minnesota their best basketball, and Dallas definitely didn't give Minnesota their best basketball today.
Crystal, I think Todd just hit the nail on the head. He said that Sylvia Fowles just abused Teresa Plaisance and Courtney Paris this afternoon. She is so hard to even slow down. Minnesota jumped at them right away. And obviously, Crystal, that Sylvia Fowles obviously is going to get, her share of rebounds and baskets inside. But obviously, 24 points for her this afternoon. Again, Maya Moore, 23 points. And as you said, again, that's why Minnesota has, like 3, 4, 5 players going to Seattle on Saturday for the All-Star game. Last game for the day, Crystal, the Fever and Mercury hooked up the first or second game for the Mercury post the Brittany Griner injury that occurred about a week or so ago. The Fever win 84-77 from TSRA in downtown PHX. Erica Wheeler, 20 points. Candice Dupree, 17 points. The Mercury, paced by Diana Taurasi's 34 points, not enough in the losing effort. Monique Curry was next closest with 12 points this afternoon. Obviously, Crystal, I said here in the 20-minute show we had a couple days ago again that, it was rough seeing all 4 of those players get hurt between Deladon and BG and Hill, and then also with McBride getting injured for San Antonio. And, obviously with BG being gone about roughly 3 to 4 weeks, this is somewhat what I had talked about a couple years ago when Skylar Diggins went down with her ACL, how the Shock were playing great. And then when she went down, they lost like 8 or 9 straight games. And at least after one game, Crystal, the Mercury lose the first game without BG in the lineup. Of course, she's out at least 3 to 4 weeks due to both a knee bruise on one leg and a ankle sprain on the other. Crystal, overall thoughts, obviously, on both Brittany Griner's loss for Phoenix, and what does this do for this Mercury team in your mind going forward post the All-Star break?
I mean, obviously losing BG is definitely big for them. No pun intended. I mean, she's been on a tear. unfortunately, it just sucks that she had that kind of injury. I mean, it was such a nasty fall. I definitely thought it was a worse injury than what it was. So I'm happy that she's not out for the season or anything like that. And I don't know if I blame them losing because of BG not being there. Honestly, I think it was just their overall game. I mean, they started off so well. You had Dana Taurasi, you know, who was just playing so well for them. But I mean, unfortunately, it wasn't enough. I mean, they ended up coming up on the short end of the stick.
I mean, like I said, Crystal, the old saying of numbers never lying again. Taurasi, 34 points, and then it goes down from there because Monique Kerr was next closest with 12 points. So this was obviously DT versus Indiana, who snapped a 5-game losing streak this afternoon with their victory. Crystal, I think I've averaged talking about Erica Wheeler at least once in the past 3 or 4 weeks on the program when I got back from vacation from Vegas and Reno, and then here and now once more again. And she really, much like Brittany Sykes, has kind of said, I'm here to help my team win. Remember the name, basically. I'm going to be here for a while. And once again, she does her job, 20 points. And again, Candice Dupree, I want to say perhaps can do second home game or second game back in Phoenix after being dealt to Indy over the offseason, 17 points. And again, Diana Taurasi, 34 points. But again, on the losing end of it, as the Fever win 84-77 here this afternoon. And Crystal, that does now bring me to a pretty good point that Todd Mintz brought up on our Facebook page today for the network again. And again, I know, Crystal, I don't want to harp too much on this because I did a lot of it yesterday during a baseball game I was announcing where 2 coaches were tossed for arguing with the game officials, Crystal. And again, I'm looking at the WNBA referees, through my web screen right now. Crystal, I don't recall a season in any professional sport I've watched over the 23 years I've been on this planet, but I can recall, just seeing a lot, really no flow or pace to a game. And just a lot of very questionable calls being against players. Now, obviously, again, Dana Taurasi was teed up today, and I also want to say was also ejected, along with her assistant coach, Todd Trucks, was also tossed today, again, due to a couple of ticky-tack calls in the game today. Crystal, I mean, Crystal, it's been a talking point amongst all of us in the community on the web, via Facebook or Twitter, what have you. But, Crystal, I think, though, that I feel this way, but I think I have felt an increase in reviews, an increase in technical fouls, and really zero tolerance for arguing with the referees, and somewhat of an increase in total length of games. Because normally, Crystal, these games are over in 2 hours flat normally, and now they somewhat have drifted 2 hours and 5 minutes, 2 hours and 10 minutes, somewhat becoming like a Major League Baseball game. Crystal, how much pressure? I mean, I don't know if it's really pressure, but Crystal, I mean, obviously, I know that it's in wake of what happened in 2015 during the postseason, during last year's finals. But Crystal, what's your overall stance, though, I guess, about how really that the game officials have become a bigger burden and problem for the WNBA games so far this season, at least, again, banking off what we already talked about of 3 separate incidents in the postseason over the past 2 years?
I will say they definitely have slowed the game down a lot, especially when they're reviewing calls that I feel like probably shouldn't be reviewed. I can understand if you're reviewing, I can't think right now. My mind.
They're path fouls.
Yeah, there we go. You hit it. There you go. I can understand if you're doing clear path fouls, or like if you're trying to see if the shot clock went off or stuff like that. But I think reviewing everything has definitely made the game a little bit slower. I understand why they did, especially after that finals last year, and especially in 2015 with the whole Phoenix and Minnesota thing. But I just think some calls are pretty blatant, and they should kind of just let them go. The officials a lot, though. I will say this year the officials have missed a lot of calls. Like, there's just been a lot of bad calls in plenty of games that I've watched, and it kind of takes the fun away from the game a little bit.
So to clean up on ILC, Mac, Todd Mintz in the chat box real quick, it was she wasn't tossed, but was called for a flagrant 1 for an elbow, and Todd says pretty bogus call. But again, Crystal, obviously, being an official in any sport is an unforgiving job. It's a thankless job. I mean, you're getting paid, but of course you are the number one scapegoat if one team loses and one team wins. Obviously, we've heard some of that chatter, of course, from a couple of Twitter people out there during last year's finals in the postseason in 2015. But again, Crystal, obviously, it's a thankless job. But again, I just don't recall seeing a season or seeing a sport, though, that I think is so hell-bent on having every game go off without any missed calls happening. Now, Major League Baseball is kind of going that way now with their replay and challenge system. But again, Crystal, though, obviously, the flow and pace of the game has really slowed down. Obviously going to the monitor, obviously has also slowed games down. And also, I think, though, too, that somewhat, a lot more ejections, I think, too, has been, a part of the reason, though. And obviously, as I said, again, this is in wake of, the 2015 phantom foul call against Maya Moore from Noel Quinn between the Lynx and Mercury. It's also the missed 8-second backcourt violation in Game 4 of the WNBA Finals last year. And obviously, the big one that still gets brought up for no reason is Neko Ogumeke's buzzer beater or shot clock or the shot clock buzzer going off in that contest. But Crystal, perhaps from the league's perspective, Crystal, are you somewhat perhaps alarmed or concerned, though, that your game officials have really slowed the pace down, have thrown out or teed up your star players or some of the league star players, or have tossed them out of games? They've tossed some more coaches out and have had more and more referees being criticized, like was done today by Sandy Brondello after the game today. Crystal, from the league's perspective, though, is it a bit alarming, though, about how really the referees have somewhat taken over most of these games this season?
I don't know if I'd say taken over. I mean, I will say they have kind of messed with. Oh, I thought I froze.
You're good.
I will. I mean, you can say that to an extent. They have made games a little bit longer than they have been, and I think that it's kind of making games hard to watch a little bit because, like I said, they're extending games to certain points where you don't need to extend them. Like the last Stars game, I think there was like 4 or 5 calls, especially within the last quarter, that were being reviewed for no apparent reason. So I will say to that point, they kind of are ruining the game a little bit, but I can understand it, like you said, because of the last season in 2015.
So again, obviously, Crystal, sitting in, but again, referees, umpires, all the game officials, they have a very, very important, but of course, a very thankless job, obviously, from either players, from coaches, the fans, obviously, who are going to be, booing or what have you towards them as well. Todd also says that with Diana's call, or the call against her, was a big call because the Fever took the momentum of the game from that point till the very end this season. Now, and obviously, Crystal, I mean, I don't want to harp on this too much longer, but again, I think, though, obviously, again, I know this job is a tough one for these officials to do, but Crystal, obviously, with you, I mean, obviously, you have gone for having gone or going to most or all the games this season in Los Angeles. Crystal, have you noticed anything differently at the arena in regards to either, like we've talked about, I mean, obviously, either technical fouls, ejections, or even, I would even say, Crystal, total length of game from tip-off till the final buzzer sounds, and you check the actual time of day, and it's not 9:30 p.m. or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, where it's more 10 minutes, 20 minutes after what you would probably plan for the game ending. Have you noticed anything at Staples or any game you've gone to so far in regards to the pace of play?
Well, the game that I actually noticed it the most was in July 2nd when they played Washington again. Washington, at the end of the game, with like 30 to 45 seconds left, they kept fouling. They kept trying to get back in the game by fouling. And because they did that, they made the game last way longer than it was supposed to. They made that 45-second quarter last about like 2 to 3 minutes. So I have noticed it. That was the game that I began to notice it, but I have noticed it, especially seeing the difference in when the game ends.
Crystal, the biggest one I can think of was when the Sparks played Chicago back in early June, and we were slated for a 10:30 show that night, and Amber Stocks had felt the need to foul consistently when they were down 10 points in the final 50 seconds. And when the game finally did go final, it was already 10:15 in the evening here on the West Coast, and we were on air 15 minutes later. And I had no time to get in studio, set up all my equipment, and then write in my game notes because the length of that game took way too long. And obviously, I know that other sports are trying to combat. Obviously, the biggest one, Crystal, is Major League Baseball. They're trying to somewhat combat or somewhat try to alleviate the game going so long. But Crystal, maybe outside of maybe the referees, perhaps, what other ways though could all professional sports, in your mind, somewhat take a burden off or somewhat improve the pace of their game flow in regards to not just basketball, Crystal, but maybe other sports though too that fans will attend and go and see?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, the only thing I can say is I guess minimizing the reviews. I know we're starting to see certain sports, cut down on how many times they can review something, or like they're cutting down, even with the NBA. Like the NBA cut down how many timeouts they can use. They went from 18 to 14, I believe, in a game. So just little stuff like that. Even before what they did before the timeouts, they cut down people's, like pregame handshakes and all that to, I think it was like 30 seconds, something. I can't really remember by memory, but I remember they cut that down too. So I guess it's just a little stuff like that, cutting down timeouts, or at least just not having, at least being able to review after a certain time. I think that's what they should start doing. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like depending on the situation of the game's probably going to be long either way.
So again, folks, to review the 4-game schedule for this Camp Day Wednesday in the WNBA, but saying the last day before the All-Star break does hit for all 12 teams. Liberty 96, Sun 80, Mystics in OT over the Dream 196, Lynx over the Wings 174, and the Fever over the Mercury 84-77. All those games are finals today from the Camp Day schedule. 2 more games on the schedule for Thursday, the final day of the first half of the season. 1 Camp Day game and a late night game, the Sky and Sparks at 12:30 p.m. tomorrow afternoon from Staples Center. And the Fever finish up their first half of the season against the Stars in San Antonio at 5 o'clock tomorrow. So, Crystal, you'll be spending your Thursday afternoon with a boatload of summer camp kids tomorrow when the Sparks take on Chicago. Who's your prediction for this game and why?
I'm not only going to have a boatload of kids, I'm going to have my niece with me, so add one more extra kid. But I'm going to pick, I mean, I know Chicago has been, on a mini winning streak lately, but I'm going to pick LA. I don't think, especially at home since LA is undefeated, I don't think they'll let Chicago get back in the game that easily. I do know sometimes at home, LA starts off kind of slow, but they end up managing to pick up their momentum, pick up their pace a little bit. Chicago is a good team. They're like sneaky. Like I think if they can hit shots consistently, then they'll sneak up on you. But Chicago kind of has a problem with, if they don't make shots, then, that's kind of where they get in trouble. Then they don't rebound, and then it kind of just goes on a pattern from there. But I think LA wins that one.
Crystal, this has been a very, very different Chicago team, obviously getting themselves kind of off the canvas and back in the mix, somewhat back in the mix, more so in the Eastern Conference standings, more so than the actual league standings. So obviously, I have LA winning, Crystal, but probably not in blowout fashion, because I know that if Chicago can get Sloot and Quigley going, and if they can feed Imani Boyette inside, and if Cabby Pondexter's on her A game, this could be a very, very different final score than what it could have been probably earlier in the season. I know that LA only beat Chicago by roughly 10 points earlier in the season, but I do like the way that Chicago's played as of late. But I don't know, though, somewhat running into a buzzsaw again, because Los Angeles has played dynamite. Obviously, they haven't lost a game yet at home so far this season. Again, they've played great at home. Obviously, you talk about the slow starts, though, but again, depending, though, on how well Chicago does come out, if they can build a big lead, if they get out to a lead and can sustain that, they may have a chance of the upset, but we both have Los Angeles winning this game. The last game for the day, Crystal, on Thursday, the Fever and Stars. So the Fever on a back-to-back to win the first half of the season, and the Stars still slumping at 2-17. Crystal, what do you got?
I'm gonna go. I mean, I'm gonna go with the Fever, but I do feel like the game will be close. I know Seattle. I almost said Seattle. I'm thinking about Seattle already. I know San Antonio struggles a little bit, but I feel like there's been a couple of games that they've stayed in, and it's just like little tiny mistakes, little mental mistakes is the reason why they lose the game. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if the game was close because I like how when San Antonio comes to play, they come to play hard and they stay in it. But I'm gonna pick Indiana. I know they're on a back to back, which might end up, which might end up hurting them on one end because they have to travel and they're tired and everything. But I'm gonna pick Indiana in a pretty close game.
I also have Indiana as well. And again, obviously, great though the Stars have got a couple wins under their belt to snap that lengthy, long losing skid they were on. But still, though, I'm going to go with the Fever. I mean, obviously, the back-to-back will somewhat kill them a little bit going from the Mountain Time Zone to the Central Time Zone now. So another hour that they're going to gain on their bodies and their bodily clocks. But they do have the break coming up, though, on Thursday, or on Friday, I should say. So we both have Indiana on that game. So again, folks, 2 games tomorrow, 1 camp day game and 1 night game to end the 2017 first half of the season. The Sparks host Chicago at 12:30 p.m., and then the Stars will host Indiana at 5 in the afternoon. Crystal, speaking of that city that you brought up during the last block, again, the 2017 WNBA All-Star Game taking place this Saturday afternoon from the Key Arena in Seattle, Washington. Again, folks, Crystal is representing the network on my behalf because, again, I cannot make the trip, sadly, to Seattle this season. But, Crystal, obviously, there's a lot going on in Seattle this weekend. Tomorrow, I believe that Breanna Stewart and Sue Bird are supposed to throw out the first pitch at the Mariners game versus the Yankees at Safeco Field tomorrow. Open practice is going to be held at Key Arena on Friday. Then, of course, the game itself on Saturday. Crystal, what are you most looking forward to outside of the All-Star game itself? What are you most looking forward to over the weekend when you're up there for the All-Star game festivities in Seattle?
Just to explore the city. I've never been there. I always see how nice it is and always hear it's nice. Probably enjoy my time there and get some good food. Probably hang out and go to a movie. Just like boring stuff like that, I guess, outside of the game.
Obviously, again, folks, once more to reiterate again, so tomorrow, I believe, what I would gather from press release again, tomorrow, some of the All-Stars will be in attendance at the Mariners-Yankees game at Safeco Field tomorrow night. First pitch, 7:10 p.m. at Safeco Field if you're going to be up there tomorrow. Friday is open practice day at Key Arena for both teams, roughly about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon for the West, I believe, and then the East following suit, or it could be vice versa. And then, of course, Saturday is the game itself at 12:30 p.m. And, Crystal, I've been to Seattle once. I flew into to SeaTac, which, of course, is Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. I was only there for a layover to come home from Honolulu a couple years ago. I'll never forget coming off the plane in Seattle wearing a T-shirt, shorts, and flip-flops, and the temperature plummeting 30 degrees because it was very foggy. It had been raining a little bit and was very, very cloudy. But other than that, though, I enjoyed my time in the airport at least. But I've had family. I have family that lives in Yakima, which is right across, which is about a couple hours west of Seattle. But of course, a city that I wanted to visit but was not able to this year because funds were not there for me this year. Hopefully next year. But with that, folks, though, more importantly about the network itself for the weekend. Now, again, Crystal will be in charge of our network Instagram account at WNBA365 on IG. So we'll have a special ASG version of Host Eye View. And also, folks, I'm working on potentially getting some type of show together sometime Friday night, maybe depending on who's in town. Going to switch up the format, folks, and bring the fans that we know that are going to the game. We want you guys to join us. So you, Jess, you, Ben, Eric, maybe, depending on who's all there. We want to get you guys involved in some capacity if we can for one night at least before the festivities do happen. But again, KT's got our IG covered for Host Eye View. And Crystal, again, obviously, in the time I've gone to WNBA games, I've hung out with you. I've hung out with Jess at a game and also took her to a baseball game when I was in Reno back in June. Crystal, obviously, we talk to these people on the web every day for the most part, either tweets, Facebook, text messages, or what have you. But Crystal, how cool will it be for you, though, to be able to interact, though, with, other members of our very close-knit WNBA family who's going to be going to this All-Star game between Quentin and Eric, of course, who you still owe 50 cents. I nearly said that on Twitter to Eric a couple days ago, so you better pay up or there will be hell to pay. But also, I think, Crystal, how special those are going to be to not only see the best women's basketball players in the world play for their respective conferences, but also hang out and meet with, hang out and spend, a whole 2 days or so with the entire community that's going to be going to this game up in Seattle on Saturday.
I think it's pretty cool. If I think it's cool if I get recognized. Honestly, I don't think people are gonna recognize me that much. Because I mean, there's gonna be a lot of people there. So I mean, if people do notice who I am and they know me, I mean, it's okay to say hi. I don't bite. But please let me know who you are in advance, because I know some people don't use their profile picture. So if I follow you or if you know who I am, just let me know who you are, because I don't want to just be like, oh yeah, you are. But I think it'd be pretty cool. I don't know if I'm actually gonna meet anybody, but if I do, I'm welcome to it, and I'm ready to have some fun. I mean, it's been stressful, as you know, so I'm ready to have some fun.
So again, folks, Crystal will be there again representing the WNBA 365 network coming up on Saturday. Again, we'll have all of her adventures across Seattle on the WNBA 365 network IG account. Again, that's at WNBA 365 on Instagram as well. So go follow us over there. I know it's been dormant dormant for a while because I've had a lot going on as usual. But again, folks, again, as I said, I'm storyboarding again, folks, of trying to somewhat get some of our great fans on the program for like a special fan produced show on Friday or sometime on Saturday night, maybe, depending on what everyone is doing. I do, though, folks, want to give a very big shout, though, to Ben Wagner, one of my good Lynx fans out there, who offered for me to stay with him in his hotel if I had a chance to get up to Seattle. Ben, sadly, man, piggy banks are empty. They need to be fed, and there's nothing right now. But I do thank you very humbly for the offer to come up there if I had a chance to. But I will repay you, though, if I can, with some hockey tickets if you come out to San Diego in February for a game sometime. I'll have more for that for you, buddy, later on. Real quick, Crystal, Michael Love wrote in to say, have a good time, Crystal, and take plenty of pictures while you're up in Seattle for us. So, yeah.
I will. Yeah, don't forget, because I'm going to be in the zone, but I will definitely try to.
So, again, folks, once more. Crystal, I also, again, somewhat teased a little bit, again, about trying to do a bit more here. Now, again, obviously, we've been, again, very reduced, again, folks, and I'll say it again once more here, more so for a couple months around, but again, folks, we will be very, very reduced and very, very limited on the amount of time that we can join you folks here on the network. And we've been missing a lot of folks. Again, that's on me a little bit for not having time. But at the same time, again, folks, there is other avenues I do walk down and drive down every once in a while for broadcasting gigs. So again, if you do not see us for a couple days, a week or 2 weeks, again, folks, do not be alarmed. We're here, but again, we have to work around schedules once more at this point in time. But again, I just want to throw that out there for you folks once more at this point in time. Also, folks, real quick, totally forgot this one too, but again, the 2017 All-Star Game three-point contest will also take place on Saturday at halftime of the All-Star Game on Saturday. And Crystal, this was something, though, that, of course, we had somewhat lobbied for, talked about, was either bringing back the Skills Challenge or bringing some type of event to the All-Star Game, because obviously it's just been just the game, really, and that's all it's been. But obviously the WNBA brings back the All-Star Game three-point shootout. Okay, Crystal, probably not the best time to have it, of course, during halftime, because then all those players are probably going to be on the bench anyway, perhaps to get the other players in. But Crystal, I know we have really talked about it and lobbied for it, but what do you think, though, about seeing the three-point contest make a return to the All-Star Game festivities starting on Saturday?
It's pretty cool. I think it's cool that they're adding it. I can tell that the fact that they put it in halftime, that it was probably like a really last-minute decision, and they probably realized that fans wanted more than just a game. So hopefully this means that we get a whole weekend eventually instead of just a game, like the skills challenge and all that stuff like they used to do. So I think it's pretty cool. And it's for a good cause, it's for charity and everything like that. So I'm excited to see who wins. I know you didn't ask this, but I think Bird is probably going to win. Bird or Maya Moore, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I'm going with those two, or I'm going with Diana Taurasi as my three selections if I have one. But hey, Crystal, I think I more so lobbied more for the weekend, like you had just said, but I think more so, at least going to the Major League Baseball All-Star Game week festivities in San Diego last summer. Again, it was a full week of stuff going on between concerts and fan fest at the convention center and the red carpet show where all the players were driven down, the main streets in downtown San Diego on Chevrolet trucks. They got to, the fans got to see them and get autographs. The home run derby, of course, before the All-Star game and the game itself. And Crystal, and then the Fan Fest there, Crystal was just absolutely out of this world for that. I mean, they had Hall of Famers and local and former Padre players there signing autographs. All 30 team mascots made the trip out to San Diego. All the ESPN, MLB Network were all there. Crystal, could the WNBA perhaps benefit or perhaps look to other sporting league all-star games to kind of pick and choose what would work? I think, Crystal, I still lobby for this Fan Fest because, again, you can have it run, Thursday, Friday, Sunday, even after the game's over with. But bring in the Hall of Famers, bring in the alumni from the team that's hosting it. And of course, have the players sign autographs. But Crystal, make it, and if need be, bring all the mascots out. Have it at have it at the convention center somewhere in a little exhibit hall somewhere, and have a whale of a time, I think. But Crystal, could the WNBA perhaps benefit though from pulling other events or looking at or observing other All-Star Game weeks or All-Star Game festivities for ideas to improve their product for the fans as early as next year wherever the game is going to be held?
I think so, but I think it would take obviously maybe like a whole year of thinking instead of just kind of like, as an example with the 3-point contest. And you could just tell that she, the president probably just threw that in there because she heard people saying, hey, we want it, it's been a while. So if they actually brainstorm it and figure out, what would be a good day, like you said, for the Fan Fest, which I think would be a good day, to do the same day as open practice, is maybe like a few hours after. But I think it could work out if they get the resources for it and if they actually brainstorm it and think about what they want to do.
Yeah, I agree. Todd has a good point. He says, personally, today should have been the day all the games were played and start festivities on Friday with everyone comfortable to get into town by then. Give these girls almost 1 week off before the season starts back up. And I know, Crystal, that was a talking point with the NBA at least. They now have gone to pretty much a full week All-Star break now as early as last season again to give the guys a breather from playing. And again, they will play the game on Saturday. They'll get Sunday and Monday off, and then I think they'll be back to the grind on Tuesday, July 25th. And obviously, more rest would be nice, presumably for maybe next time for the All-Star game, folks. And early reports speculate that the Timberwolves and Lynx will put a dual bid in to host both the NBA and WNBA All-Star games at Target Center in 2018. Of course, the renovations being done to the arena will be done in time for the T-Wolves season. But again, that was according to both Ben Wagner, one of my good friends, again, who offered to let me stay in the hotel with them up in Seattle, and also from the Minneapolis Star Tribune, that the Lynx and T-Wolves are probably going to bid for the All-Star game next season for the 2018 NBA and 2018 WNBA season. But again, folks, as a reminder, once more, tomorrow's the last day of the first half of the season. Folks, on Friday or Saturday, we are working on a fan-produced show. Crystal's going to try to round up some of our Twitter friends, perhaps at the game or after the game somewhere, and we'll look to have a somewhat of a crash course show thrown together. And again, folks, as well, like I teased again, but we are also working on some new programming for you folks during the off season when we do have time. Again, folks, once Labor Day weekend starts, I am booked from September 1 until April 28th of next year with college sports, hockey, and indoor soccer. So, again, folks, if you do not see us, like I said again, for a couple days or a couple of weeks, do not panic. We are still going to be here. But again, folks, we have to draw back a lot because, again, once September 1 hits, I'm in grind mode for the remainder of the year at this point, or starting at that point in time in the first weekend of September. But again, folks, the final scores from today, at least: Liberty 96, Sun 80, Mystics 100, Dream 96, Lynx 100, Wings 74, Fever 84, Mercury 77. 2 games tomorrow, the Sky and Sparks at 12:30 p.m., Pacific time, and the Fever and Stars at 5 o'clock to round out the first half of the regular season. And again, folks, one more friendly reminder, the 2017 WNBA All-Star Game will take place on Saturday, at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 3:30 Eastern on your local ABC affiliate. Please check your local listings for your ABC affiliates. Crystal, obviously, I probably shouldn't go this route, but I know that you've had a lot going on, though, between your mom's health and also somewhat of a pretty strange car accident you were telling me about yesterday. Crystal, obviously, I know that perhaps it's not the time and place, but can you somewhat fill in fans, though, about your mom's health and what also has happened, though, with you over the past couple of weeks?
Yes, my mom is fine. She's out of the hospital, obviously, since I'm doing the show. And the car accident stuff it's weird. I mean, it's still getting worked out, but yeah, I'm okay. My car still moves. Um, I mean, I have no bumper, but I mean, that's neither here nor there at the moment. I mean, I was a little sore. Like like today, I woke up, my back was hurting a little bit, but I'm fine. Like it's not anything major. But yeah, I mean, I'm okay for the most part, and I'm just trying to hopefully have a pretty good stress-free weekend.
Crystal. Also, I mean, this just came into my head real quick. Of course, about your niece again, and we've seen her sometimes on Google Hangouts, climbing all over you. We've seen her in off-air Hangouts. I've seen her on Snapchat. But Crystal, you sent out a pretty nice tweet to Chelsea Gray of the Sparks a couple of games ago when you took your niece to a game, and of course, Chelsea was nice enough to take a picture with both you and your niece, and you said to her, that made your niece's day. Crystal, obviously, I know it's special for you or me to go to these games, but Crystal, I guess you really kind of hone in or really, I guess, fill us in though about how much fun it is though to take your niece to see these, these incredible and talented, athletes play their sport, and I mean, she's had a blast. Looks like from the things I've seen though. I mean, how fun has it been though for you to take your niece to these games, and again, letting her see what she could be though in the next couple of years, maybe, who knows? But what do you think though, and why?
It's actually, you know what? I didn't think my niece was going to enjoy it that much because, like, the last time she went to a game, she was a little bit younger. She was like, "Oh, this is boring." But now that she's older, she kind of just dances around and stuff. And like, as long as you give her an IC and as long as she can high five Sparky a few times, she's pretty set. I mean, the funny thing about it is like, not only did she enjoy it, but when we went to the little gift shop to buy a shirt, I was like, okay, pick what shirt you want. And it's ironic. She ended up picking a Candace Parker shirt. And she was like, she's like, I like this one because it's number 3 and all this other stuff. So she's slowly getting into it. She knows her Nene plays basketball and loves basketball. And she actually likes basketball like that yet. I'm not forcing her to, but I think she kind of just enjoys right now the vibe. And especially since it's camp day tomorrow, I think she'll have a lot more fun.
Crystal, I went to the game, the Camp Day game. You missed it last year, but I took two friends of mine, Cameron and his girlfriend Sarah, to the game last year when the Sparks played Atlanta. That I've shared the story, who knows how many times on the web or on the channel here. And just seeing those kids, and again, they're in summer camps, Crystal. They're trying, their parents are probably trying to get them out of the house and do some stuff, instead of sitting around and playing Xboxes or playing with their fidget spinner all day. But those kids, Crystal, I mean, they get so involved in the game. I mean, I don't want to sound rude, Crystal, but some of them probably don't know what's going on, but they're just there, though, having a great time, and everything else included in the end. It helps the attendance numbers go up, but Crystal, I mean, in the time that you've gone to these Camp Day games, Crystal, how fun is it for you, though, to see all these, young kids, elementary school kids, or, maybe somewhat in maybe middle school. How fun is it, though, for you as a fan, of course, to see the arena overrun by all these kids for one game out of the year, and to seeing how, how they engage with the players, and also how they get in, just how they get into the game. It's really just so much fun to see.
Oh man, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I like to see smiling kids. I know a lot of people complain about how loud Camp Day is and complain about, like you said, I guess they feel like a lot of kids don't know what's going on and they're just screaming. But that's what it's about, honestly. I mean, it's about the kids and it's about them having fun and getting out. And some, actually do pay attention to the game, and then some are there just have fun. But about having fun either way. I think it's cool. I think it's cute to see and listen and watch all the kids dance and scream around and everything. It puts a smile on my face, and it also puts a smile on a lot of players' faces too. You know, sometimes they'll watch and they'll look at the kids and interact with the kids, and I think it's a pretty cool thing. I love it.
You know, again, before we got here real quick, you know, and again, Crystal, you know, before I waited 90 minutes to see Candace Parker after that game against ATL, you know, we were sitting, you know, on the glass seats for a hockey game at Staples, you know, one row away from the floor and everything else included, and seeing all the, you know, and seeing all the campers that stayed for the whole game, and seeing Candace go and give them a hug or go and sign an autograph for them, you know, that, you know, and like Owen Perkins said though, Crystal, for these camp day games a couple of weeks ago, you know, that, you know, not only helps brand awareness for the team, but also that, you know, it gives these kids, you know, memories that they're going to cherish for forever. You know, I mean, obviously, you know, meeting or seeing these players play, of course, is one very great story. Michael Luss says, seeing the kids dance is so funny. And I would agree 100% because I was at a section overrun by the kids, and they were just having a good old time jamming out last year when the Sparks played ATL last season. But again, folks, to reiterate your 2-game schedule for mañana, again, the Sky and Sparks, 12:30 p.m. PDT, Fever and Stars, 5 o'clock PDT to end the 2017 first half of the season before the All-Star break does begin. With that, folks, for Crystal Thomas in Los Angeles, Cal McClurg in San Diego signing off for the night. We'll see folks back here either on Friday or a very special Saturday edition of the program to recap the 2017 WNBA All-Star Game. Actually, folks, should say this. We'll be back tomorrow, I should say, and back tomorrow, but we'll be back as well either Friday or on Saturday again for some All-Star Game coverage for you folks out there. Again, folks, for Crystal Thomas up in Los Angeles, Cal McClurg from the Calamax Sports Studios in San Diego signing off and saying goodnight. See you folks back here in roughly 23 and a half hours back here at 9:30 p.m. to recap both games from tomorrow and to further tell you folks about what's going to be happening with us here for the upcoming weekend for All-Star Game festivities, folks. Take care and good night. Bye-bye.